All right. Hello, everyone. The purpose of this video is to show the different ways you can sync a couple different pieces of equipment. Got the Yamaha Reface CS, the Korg SQ-1, and the Roland TR-08. Now, these are all kind of entry-level pieces of gear. So, there's no menus or anything, not really much as far as presets except for the TR-08. And so because they're entry level, they kind of have their limitations as far as using MIDI in or out or anything like that. So kind of made some discoveries on how these all can work together pretty seamlessly in creating some good jams and some loops. I originally started with the Yamaha Reface, and I had was using the looper. And if you look into the menus with this thing, you can quantize it to 16th notes is what I did. And then I was having that synced to the Roland TR-08 through MIDI. Now I tried to have the TR-08 here control the Reface CS. The problem was that through MIDI using the clock, but the Roland TR-08 was sending some, I guess it's MIDI information, all of the drums MIDI sounds, or MIDI information to the CS, so it wasn't just sending the clock, it was sending everything else and causing a mess. So I did it the other way around, did MIDI out with the Yamaha into the Roland, but, and it worked fine using the looper. The problem was you have to use this little tempo slider to dial in the tempo. I'd much rather use this precise wheel to dial in the tempo. So rather have the drums control this. So that was fun for a while, but then I decided I wanted to get a looper, so I got the Korg SQ-1. This is kind of gonna be like the centerpiece of this video. So the Korg SQ-1, I wanted to get a step sequencer because it'd be kind of fun to more change the loops after the fact rather than just recording loops. So the obvious place to start here is the Korg SQ-1 sequencing the Reface. So the Korg SQ-1 only has a MIDI out. There's no MIDI in, but obviously if you're sequencing, you don't really need much going in. So at this point, they have this little adapter, got the MIDI out coming here, and then over here, we have the MIDI coming in with this adapter. Have both the channels set the same, which you can see in the manuals for both pieces of gear. And it works great. So not going to do any kind of tutorial on how to use the sequencer, but simply enough, it plays everything fine. So it's perfectly compatible just by using MIDI. I guess I should add that when I bought this equipment, I started with the Yamaha. I later on bought the Roland TR-08, and then I got the Korg. It's kind of bold of me to get 3 different types of entry-level equipment, hoping they would sync, but I was able to make it work. So I found out that was fairly simple as far as getting this set up, but then I wanted to incorporate the Roland to see if the Roland TR-08 would somehow, with its master tempo, control everything else. Now, the Korg SQ-1 only has one input, and that's over here in the sync in. So the Korg has a different line of equipment they have, or gear. They've got the Volca series, and this little piece of device works really well with all the Vocal series apparently. And they've got the little bits, and all these and these sync in and outs apparently work really well with the Volcas. So I saw that as an opportunity before I got the device, but I was curious if Roland's trigger out, which sends trigger pulses, would send any type of a clock or triggering to the step sequencer, and if that Korg SQ-1 would accept that and play properly. So I found out that it does work. The way it works is I've just got a standard mono 1/8" jack or cord. This runs into the sync in, and then from there you have to do a little bit of parameter settings here, which you can look online, but you hold a certain button, I think it's the function button down, while you turn this on. That gets you into the mode where you're able to change these things. There's a way to set it into, while you're in that setting, you slide this knob over to CV slide, and that sets it on 16th note pulses. And that makes it so that when it accepts the triggers from over here, it'll play an individual note per trigger. Easiest way to do it. If you run a beat over here, nothing's playing. But that's because when you have the sync in here, you need to essentially arm it, like if you were using like Pro Tools. So you need to arm it, and then when you hit play on the left over here, it works perfectly in sync. Now, the way it works here with the Roland TR-08 with these triggers is it'll trigger whenever you want it to trigger. So while it's playing, if you hit the trigger button, you're able then to decide where you want it to trigger. So one thing you can do is, if you didn't want it to be 16th notes, but you wanted to use the same pattern on the sequencer, you can take out, every other trigger. So if we arm the SQ-1 and fire it up, we can add in these extra steps. This allows you to get longer notes, or you can even create irregular patterns. It has its setbacks here and there, like if you don't have the same amount of steps over here as you do over here, you're gonna get polyrhythms layering on top of each other. And you can get creative with it, but sometimes that'll not work. So that works there. And the next step though was I had to so it all works fine. This tempo triggers the SQ-1, which also sequences the Yamaha, and you can change the tempo on the fly and everything works. The one thing that I discovered next was actually you can still use the looper. You can still use the looper while using the sequencer. So that allows you to kind of layer even more sounds and everything if you would like to, if you were looking at doing something like that. So the SQ-1 has its limitations in that it only goes down so low of octaves. I think it's like C3 is the lowest it goes, so you can't really get bass notes. So if you want to lay some chords down or some bass notes under everything else, it works. So like I said, the looper I have on here quantized at 16th notes. So you can set this on, you can record something on here, and then it'll actually be triggered when you hit start on the Roland. It'll start the looper as well as the sequencing as well. So first, if you just record a simple, let's just do a bass note here. So we're in the key of C. So if we just do a simple, then if you hit stop, you hit it on stop, it'll just stay stopped until it's triggered from the outside MIDI that's sending in, telling it to play. So if we come back over here and we hit play, gotta arm it. So you arm this, and we will actually first, let's get these triggers all back. So we'll get these all back in 16th notes. And then if you arm the sequencer, hit play, it adds in those bass notes there. So pretty cool to be able to just layer all this stuff with just, you know, all these instruments running into each other and out into a little portable speaker. So you can get creative with different polyrhythms and whatnot, but this is a pretty cool way to do it. So that's pretty much it. Try to do it all in one take.